This is Pawprint, an animal rescue community, episode 111. I'm Nancy Rhee.
And I'm Harold Rhee.
Today's guest is Jane Sobel Klonsky, photographer and author of the book Unconditional.
To me, it's all about relationships. There's something about these senior dogs. They seem to have so much love to give. They seem so wise. They teach us so much about compassion and responsibility and just living in the moment.
Jane Sobel Klonsky is an acclaimed photographer who uses her photography skills to spread the message of senior dog rescue. She has some wonderful photographs and stories in her book, Unconditional, and started an ongoing project called Unconditional Stories. You can look her up on social media and her website. We're so pleased to have Jane on our show as she shares her own life journey as well as the lives of senior dogs. If you want to learn more about Jane Sobel Klonsky, as well as Unconditional the book and Unconditional Stories, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/111. That's the number 111.
It was something I've always wanted to do, to combine my photography with my love of dogs. And it's just a long story. But I finally, one day in 2012, where I was sitting in my insurance broker's office, and the two combined. She had her old bulldog sitting next to her in a bed, right next to her chair behind her desk. And her arm was outstretched. This was Angela, my insurance broker. Her arm was outstretched, and her hand was laying on Clemmy's side. And it was like a little light bulb just went off in my head. I realized what I wanted to do. I wanted to document the special relationships that people have with their dogs. And I asked her if she would be my first subject. It was meant to be.
Oh, wonderful.
And that was the genesis.
So, looking at your book, you are traveling across the United States, including Alaska. How long did this project take you?
The project took me over 4 years, and it still continues because I'm still taking pictures. But it took over 4 years, and it was after I took pictures when I asked Angela if she would be my first subject with her big old bulldog. She told me that unfortunately Clementine had been diagnosed with cancer not too long before that, didn't have very long to live. And Clementine was 13 years old. So we photographed the next day. And when I saw those pictures, there was such poignancy in those pictures. And there was just such wiseness and love in Clemmy's eyes that I knew that I wanted not only to document the relationships that people had with their dogs, but with their older dogs. There was something super special about that. And, it started slowly. It started with, kind of friends and friends of friends, that kind of thing. And then it just grew. And I realized that I had friends around the country. I connected with friends. I used a lot of frequent flyer miles. I slept on a lot of people's couches. I connected with a lot of organizations. And, word just spread.
How did you make the Alaska connection?
All these connections were so interesting. The Alaska connection was made through actually somebody I know here in Vermont whose sister is a musher, and she lives she has a place near Denali. And so she put me in touch with her sister, and I went to Alaska. And I had another connection with another person who used to live in Vermont and had moved to Wasilla. So, I had places to stay. It was, it's amazing. People who love dogs just are so welcoming. And it wasn't a problem. I just had to get myself there.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you one question about the Alaska trip, because I noticed that you have one photo that it was really the only one where I'm like, I got to ask her about this. Mike Koskovich and his dog Ruby, you took a photo of them riding their motorcycle.
Yes, I did.
Do you remember where were you when you took this photo? Because I just found it kind of fascinating, because I think they were moving in the motorcycle, so...
They were. Well, when I met Mike and Ruby, Mike lives on a lake. Mike is a pilot. He does tourist trips in this little airplane. Ruby goes in the airplane with him. They have a boat. Ruby goes in the boat with him. In the truck, Ruby rides next to him in the truck. And when he rides his motorcycle, Ruby rides in the sidecar of the motorcycle. So I knew that if I was going to get a photo of them and their relationship, it had to be in one of these vehicles. And somehow the sidecar seemed perfect. So I was in a truck in the bed of the truck, which was in front of the motorcycle moving.
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. You have all these little tips and tricks as a lifetime photographer or as a lifetime professional photographer. So I just want to make sure I steal a little advice from you every once in a while.
Absolutely.
So, great.
Well, what I try to do, Harold, is when I meet people, like I had never met Mike with Ruby before I went to his home, and I try to take my time. I talk to people. I see what they do with their dogs. How do they spend their time? What's their relationship like? And then I kind of try to gear my photography around that.
We're talking to Jane Sobel Klonsky, photographer and author of the recent book Unconditional, a book really that's focused on people and their senior dog companions. Why senior dogs?
It didn't start that way. What I explained before, it just was about relationships. And to me, it's all about relationships. But there was something when I did that first shoot, there was something about these senior dogs. They seem to have so much love to give. They seem so wise. I just learned so much they teach us so much about compassion and responsibility and just living in the moment. And they have so much to give, and they seem to make us slow down a little bit. And what's that phrase? Smell the roses, take time. And so it was, that's where I wanted to focus on.
Okay.
And also my dogs. I have 2 dogs, and my older dog, it will be 10 this year, so he's a senior, and that's Charlie. And Sam will be 7, so that will make him a senior. So, and I'm seeing things in Charlie that he's just. I'm appreciating him more every day. He has slowed down. I think I've slowed down. We both have, but he just wants to be loved a little bit more. He's kind of sharing this wisdom with me. He looks at me with these eyes that just kind of bore into my soul. So,
was there any particular story that really touched you as you were documenting it?
Oh my gosh, there were so many stories. I photographed all kinds of people and dogs. And, I photographed rescue dogs, non-rescue dogs, service dogs, avalanche rescue dogs. All kinds. And I was just thinking of a man who lives not too far from me in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Wayman, who was a Vietnam vet, and he was in a wheelchair, and he lived in his room in a sort of a boarding house, wouldn't come out. He was depressed. He'd just have the TV on, and somebody suggested that he get a rescue dog. So he got Chloe. Because of Chloe, he was able to leave his room in his boarding house, and he and Chloe would tool around the streets of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Chloe would either ride along next to him on the ground or sit on his lap, because Chloe was a little beautiful little dog. And they would share ice cream together. He would talk to people. Chloe got him out, but it was because of Chloe he wasn't in that room anymore. Did he truly recognize that? Yes, he absolutely recognized that. In his story that he told me, it was he said because of Chloe, he was able to leave his room, and he was able to realize that there was a life. So a real transformation in a lot of ways, right? A super transformation, yes. Yeah. Any stories, maybe it went the other way around, where maybe it was a rescue situation where truly the dog was transformed by the new connection? Oh, absolutely. There was I'm just thinking a family that I photographed in San Diego, and it's just amazing to me that some of these families that they have kids, and the whole family's involved in senior dog rescue, and they rescued Daisy and Maggie, and Maggie is blind. Daisy's just a little old white scruffy senior dog. But because they rescued Daisy and Maggie, they gave her an entire new life. She entered a life which she didn't know before, because she was in a shelter someplace and she was blind. But she came into their home, and there's so much love there. They go out for walks, they play around in the house. It's just quite amazing that they saved this dog. And then this little blind dog who was Daisy saved the other dog, who just didn't really wasn't very social. But when they brought the blind dog in, it was just amazing. And they teach, it was just something for me, because the parents, their names are Katie and Jeremy, and they're two young girls. They teach them all about, being kind to all animals, taking dogs in, being responsible for them, being compassionate. And these are all the values that they've taught them in growing up. Yeah. It's amazing.
Thank you, right? Because the whole idea of really spotlighting senior dogs really, not even necessarily in their later years, but really sort of in their midlife, heading into their later years. It is amazing how even in the rescue community, we still have to get people used to the idea of these are dogs that really have so much to offer, so much to give, regardless of their age, regardless of even their physical condition.
I so agree with you. As the project has gone on further, I've gotten more involved with the rescue community. And I think 100% of the time, the people that I have photographed and interviewed and written stories for me about rescuing senior dogs and taking them in, 100% of the cases have been who rescued who. Right. It's been, yes, this dog needed rescuing, but I found out that I got rescued. These dogs they know they're being rescued. Yeah. They have so much love to give. They have their manners already. They've been through, all the puppy stuff. They're there, and they appreciate every single day. And I hear what you're saying. It's the exact same thing that I found. And yeah. I do think that word is getting out more and more and more. I'm amazed that some of these organizations, like Muttville Senior Dog Rescue, that they have, these hospice programs. What they call them? I guess they call it a hospice program. And there's waiting lists. How cool is that?
That's right. Yeah, Muttville is definitely one of the best organizations when it comes to senior dog rescue. So yeah,
it's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard, but the Washington Post about almost a week ago had a wonderful article highlighting senior dogs, and so that's kind of made a little bit of a buzz in the rescue world. The fact that the Washington Post actually wrote an article about that. So
I know, and Muttville was highlighted in that, which was fabulous. And another organization that I work with, Tulani Project, which rescues the older German Shepherds. They were highlighted in that article too, which was fabulous, and they're an incredible organization.
Yeah, Tulani program, Gray Muzzle, which I think you mentioned in your book. Yeah, some really great programs. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's rewind the clock a little bit and focus on you. Now you have dogs. You've had dogs in the past. Can you tell us about maybe some of your earlier memories and experiences with dogs?
I've always had dogs my entire life. I guess my earliest memories are growing up. I had a Cocker Spaniel, Nika. Nika had, and remember, I grew up and dogs were I lived in the suburbs of Long Island, New York, and dogs kind of roamed the neighborhood. It's what everybody did then. So Nika had a total of 36 puppies. And she kind of kind of made the rounds around the neighborhood. She had 6 litters. We kept one. The 30th puppy was a single puppy called 30, and he ended up being the father. Ended up being some local poodle. So he was, at that time, we called him a cockapoo. And he was just a mutt, but I guess now he's one of those doodle dogs. I mean, it would be a fancy one, but he wasn't then. And he lived to 18. So we always had dogs. We always took in whatever dogs, came by in the neighborhood. And, but that was my earliest experience with dogs. We seemed to always have puppies around.
Tell me if this is true. During the making of your book with your husband, Heartlands, you had an experience with 2 of your dogs as you were traveling across the country.
We did. We had Great Danes then. Okay, so we had a studio in New York City in the Chelsea area. So it was at 15th Street and 7th Avenue. I had 2 really big Great Danes, Molly and Otto at the time. And everybody in the neighborhood knew us. We would we'd be everywhere. We'd always be walking the dogs for miles around that area. Nobody knew my name. Everybody knew the dog's name. Anyway, Arthur and I were sports photographers. We did advertising sports in New York City. We decided that it was time to leave New York, that it was kind of a too fast-paced life. We would meet each other in airports. So we convinced the Image Bank, which was our stock photography agency at the time, and Kodak, that was in the heyday of film, to send us on a trip around rural America, photographing people in rural America. So we traveled for 18 months. We took Molly and Otto with us, our 2 big Great Danes. They were our ambassadors. We traveled 154,000 miles, and
wow.
We would stay like 2 weeks in each place. We had a big 5th wheel that we designed. We had a truck that was custom. In the back seat of the truck we custom made a huge, gigantic dog bed for the 2 Great Danes. So they rode in style, and they came with us for a year and a half. It was incredible. It was just fabulous. And there were so many pictures and articles and of Arthur and me, and more important was our 2 Great Danes, Molly and Otto.
Amazing.
They made a lot of friends, and they helped us make a lot of friends, and they made our whole project easier. And we did produce a book from it called Heartlands with Simon & Schuster back in '89.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about how you got into photography? I mean, people may not realize this. You are an award-winning, acclaimed photographer. You've been in the midst of some pretty important events in life.
Okay, thank you. When I went to, I was trained as a psychologist.
Oh.
In New York City, I worked with alcoholics and drug addicts, and I just would carry around the weight of the world on my shoulders. But I love working with people. And I don't know, one day I picked up a camera, and I met Arthur, and he was a landscape designer, and he told me, you know what? You can be anything you want to be. I know that you love photography. Why don't you start taking some pictures. So I did while I was still working in psychology, and I would take pictures, just some portraits, and I would make $50 for a shoot, and it went up to $100, and it would gradually get a little bit more. And one day, Arthur, this is so funny, Arthur walked into Carnegie Hall in New York City, and he just asked, are there any studios for rent? I mean, other people rented studios in New York, photo studios that were down in the photo district. That would be in the 20s,
kind of the Chelsea sort of area.
Yeah.
Right.
So they, and they get these big spaces and down there, but they wouldn't rent a studio in Carnegie Hall. I mean, that's big time. So he said, are there any studios available? And anyway, there was one. This record company called Island Records was moving out. And Arthur said, I want to look at it. And we ended up moving in there, and we just started a photography business, the 2 of us, not knowing anything. It was crazy.
Wow.
But we were kind of, you know what? We were at the right place in the right time. One of the first shoots we ever did, we rented a helicopter and took pictures of all these of the thousands of runners who ran the New York City Marathon, the first time it was run over the Verrazano Bridge. Mm-hmm. And we had no idea what we were doing. We were told by a friend who was a Sports Illustrated photographer, take the doors off the helicopter, hang out of the helicopter. Anyway, we did. Arthur hung out of the helicopter. One of the pictures that he took, and I remember telling him, "Oh, you can only shoot like 2 rolls of film. Film is expensive." And one of the pictures ended up being sold to Manufacturers Hanover, and it became a famous poster. But because of that, then we started getting calls because we were somehow these official running photographers. And we had no idea what we were doing, but one thing led to another, which led to another, and that's how we started.
Wow. So it's not like the marathon actually called you up and said, "Hey, could you get in this helicopter and take photos of us?" I mean, this was all on your own initiative.
Yes, absolutely.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Now, did the marathon ever approach you in any official capacity?
Oh yeah. Well, once we got started,
sure.
Then I remember one of the first jobs we had. We were called by the advertising agency who handled. Remember Bonnie? I don't know if Bonnie Bell is still in business, but Bonnie Bell Cosmetics. So the advertising agency that handled their account called us and said, "Oh gosh, you did this incredible picture of all the runners. I'm sure, can we see your portfolio because we want to hire you?" Anyway, we didn't have a portfolio.
Right,
we had no idea.
So how did you put together a portfolio?
We didn't. We said that our portfolio was out someplace. And and so they believed it, and they just hired us. They hired us to do a whole 8 pages in 17 magazine. And I remember Arthur photographed from one spot, I photographed from another, because we didn't know if the film was going to even go through the camera. Our assistant was our niece. We called her our little schlepper. We didn't know you had assistants. We didn't know anything, but we kind of did everything by the seat of our pants, and we just learned for the next thing, and then people started calling us, and we did get a portfolio.
How many months and years did you kind of feel like, hey, I'm an actual professional photographer? I mean, like mentally, how'd you develop your own mindset?
Well, I think once you have start getting some jobs, we rented a studio, and then we had to pay that cost, and then we started advertising basically too, that we were photographers, and it was fun. I mean, for me, when I was there in the heyday of film, of photography, of advertising, the 80s were a bustling time, in advertising. So, and then it's much harder now, I think. That doesn't mean that people can't make it, but I think it's all just a little bit harder. Money's a little tighter, advertising budgets, the digital world it's all different, now, when we didn't have digital then, so, every picture you took counted, and you weren't in competition with every single person that has an iPhone. Right. So it's all different now.
Right.
I think it's a lot harder for younger people who are coming up now and want to go into photography. Interesting.
I mean, what advice it's interesting because on this podcast, we happen to actually interview, I would say we've interviewed maybe 4 or 5 photographers. What advice would you offer to a young photographer right now?
I've mentored a bunch of young photographers. I still say you need to follow your dream. Absolutely. Definitely don't give up. But maybe try to get into a specific area, like if it is sports, but maybe not just even sports. It might be tennis or baseball, but try to find a specific niche would be better than just broad in general. I think trying to work as an assistant in either a photography studio or work maybe working in a newspaper or a magazine, even if you're not going to even get paid. So maybe you have another job that pays for that. So you can just learn the ropes. And I think all that's really super important. I kind of wonder, some younger people have asked me, well, what about photography school? There's a lot of, schools that you can go to. And I think schools and workshops are fabulous, but I think there's kind of nothing like real life experience in photography.
Yeah.
But I think you do have to know the basics, though. So you do have to know, however you learn them.
Yeah. Well, one last photography question, and then we'll get back to the animal rescue. With the digital age, there's an explosion of photography, but not necessarily a growth in good photography. When you see a photograph, what in your mind takes it to that next level where, wow, that's a fantastic photograph?
Yes. It's usually, well, number one, it would be the emotion that it conveys. So when I see something that's a great photograph, it just like takes my breath away. I can feel the meaning and the emotions in what the person is trying to convey. I think that light is super, super, super important. It's all about light. Yes, it's about the emotions, but if you have to work to make the light the best you can make it. So, it could be, something that makes it just so beautiful. Like, people don't tend to photograph like in the late afternoon before the sun sets, or even after the sun sets, or really early morning when that light is so gorgeous or golden, using the light coming through windows or backlighting. I think that I get, I've taught a lot of photography. And I think that just for people to think outside the box, just kind of like, okay, let's not just hold the camera and take a picture of you, Harold, but I might like lay on the ground or go up on a ladder or, walk around the subject and find different vantage points. I think that it's important to, and all those things go into, like the composition. The composition and just it's all goes into making something that you'll go, wow, that's really fabulous.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I know you've seen a lot of photographs, so to find a good one for you must be it must be kind of neat when someone gets some praise from you, I would imagine. So
yeah, in fact, it was really fun when my book. Right before the book came out, I was a guest on National Geographic has. It's called Your Shot, where you can submit photos and then they get judged. They have different categories. They constantly have different contests going on. So my contest was about dogs and older dogs. And so I got to judge. It was a 3-week contest, and it was so much fun. I got to pick 10 winners, and the 10 winners each got a copy of my book. But I really saw some incredible photography. I mean, it was just a joy. And then I got to talk to the people, because we talked back and forth online, about what I liked or different things that I thought maybe could make their pictures, like better, and that was fabulous.
Well, switching gears now to animal rescue, you've just talked about how to make photography, or how photography makes the world a better place. How do you think animal rescue makes the world a better place?
Well, it's definitely making the world a better place and helping the animals. That's number one. Getting these poor animals that have been either abused or left on the street, or just, or even if just people, can't keep their animals anymore, that it's helping all these animals. I think it really helps make the world a better place, because it creates a whole value system of what's really important. And I think that it tends to make people have more of a sense of compassion and responsibility. It's not just about just doing things for ourselves, but taking care of the responsibility of taking care of these animals that don't have homes or don't have families anymore. And I think it makes people really feel better, and it makes people really feel good about themselves and about the community. It finds like-minded people that can work together. I think it does incredible things for people.
We're speaking to Jane Sobel Klonsky. Jane, how do folks find you? How do folks find the book? How do folks find Project Unconditional?
Okay, so people can find me probably through my website, which is projectunconditional.info. And I also have Facebook, an active Facebook community, and people are always sharing, which is just wonderful. On Facebook, and that's Project Unconditional, and Instagram and Twitter also. And my book, you can just, probably a lot of bookstores and also Amazon. And actually, Amazon has a really great price for it, selling it for right now, which is fabulous. So it's a good time. If anybody wanted to buy it, go for it.
So for Project Unconditional, it sounds like this project is continuing. When people go to Project Unconditional, what should they be looking for? I mean, what are some of the new developments that you're working on?
I'm working on developing more of a real community for people to go to find out resources and valid, good information about all things older dogs. And it could be the rescue dogs, it could be service dogs or working dogs. It could be just people asking questions and getting information, maybe veterinary information. It could be videos. I know that my daughter is a videographer, and she's made a whole series of videos based on the project. So it could be the videos too. So, and I think it's just more of a very large community of senior dog lovers.
If you had that magic wand and you could change something about the state of animal rescue, what do you think that would be?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. That maybe the powers to be or the legislative people out there, that they would be pass better laws that would help people in the animal community and rescue community. And I just all too often do you hear about like abusive situations and nothing happens to the person who does the abusing. So I have a hard time with that, and I wish that was changed. I kind of wonder sometimes, it's kind of the same with nonprofits around the world helping people, that sometimes I wish some of these organizations would get together more, work together more. And I know there's a reason, and that there are so many different organizations. But I kind of wish people would work more together, that they'd be able to maybe to get the word out more. And each organization is fabulous in their own way. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it's it's as one of our previous guests said, get everybody to play in the same sandbox, so to speak.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't mean to step on anybody's toes by saying that at all, because I think everybody's incredible and they're doing whatever they can, the best they can, however they can do it. But I wish they would play in the same sandbox more. That was brilliant. Yeah, I agree.
Last question: if your dogs could speak, either dogs that you've been either dogs you've been sharing a life with, or even maybe some of the dogs that you've photographed over the past few years, what do you think they'd say to you?
Guys, this is so funny that you're asking me this, because this is what I ask every single person that I photograph. I just ask them that. It's just one of the questions, and people just stop for a second. But nobody's ever asked me that. That's hysterical. So probably my Sammy, my golden, would probably say, "I love you. And then he would also probably say, can I have a cookie? And I think probably, yes. And I think probably Charlie, who's my senior, my doodle dog, would probably say, throw a ball for me. Can I go play in the mud, Mom? So, and in fact, yesterday I posted a picture on my Facebook page and my personal page of Charlie. I had taken him to the groomer, to the beauty parlor a few days ago, and I did a before and after picture. Oh my gosh, they're so funny. And then yesterday he got to play in the mud, so even I posted a before when he finished the groomer, and he looks so perfect. And he's white. And yesterday his face is all full of mud. Yeah, the more mud, the better, Mom.
We want to say thank you to Jane Sobel Klonsky for sharing her story. If you want to learn more about Unconditional, as well as Unconditional Stories, that's the new name for Project Unconditional, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/111. We also want to say thank you to Marie Mackisbach for connecting us with Jane. Stay tuned next week for 2 episodes. First up, we'll have Dr. Kate Hurley giving her talk, From One Sneeze to a Million Lives. That's cat lives. You won't want to miss her inspirational talk. Then later in the week, we have Jimmy and Rose Hunter of House of Ig. Ig as in iguana. You won't want to miss this episode featuring some rockin' reptiles. If you'd like to meet me or Nancy on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, look for This Is Paw Print, all one word. If you want to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on your favorite podcast app like iTunes, SoundCloud, or Pocket Cast. Search for Paw Print Animal Rescue and hit the subscribe button to get the latest episodes immediately. We just want to say thank you for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. We have listeners from over 120 different countries, and we couldn't have done it without your support. So thank you. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.